Good morning, grade 10s. I hope you guys are all doing well. So we're moving to the second part of a parabola now. You would have remembered that the first part, they gave us the equation and we had to sketch the parabola. And in this section, we are now no longer going to be sketching the parabola. We are going to be finding the equation of the parabola. So they will either give you the information, for example, they'll tell you what the y-intercept is or the x-intercept and a coordinate, or they will give you a graph which will show you the x and the y intercepts or a coordinate. So we are going to look at how to determine the equation of a parabola. So just a reminder, there are two different ways of finding the equation of a parabola, and it all depends on what information they give you. The first type is if they give you the y-intercept plus one other point, and the second type is when they give you the two x-intercepts plus another point. So depending on what information you are given, you will decide which type you are going to use to find the equation of the parabola. So for type 1, this is where the y-intercept is given. You're going to replace the q value with the y-intercept. We're using the standard form, y is equal to ax squared plus q, and we know that q is our y-intercept, so you would replace the q value with whatever the y-intercept is. And then you will notice that you have another coordinate, and what you're going to do is you're going to substitute that other coordinate, the x value, into the x place and the y value into the y place of your standard form. Once you have substituted the x and the y value in, the only variable that will be left is a. So you would simplify so that you can get a all on its own, which will then give you the value of a. And once you have the value of a, you now have your two unknown values, which is your a and your q. You substitute them both into your standard form, and there you have the equation of a parabola. Type 2 is a little bit more complicated. So when they give you both of the x-intercepts, you are going to use the factorized form of your equation. And then what you're going to do is you're going to substitute your two x-intercepts in the place of x1 and x2 in your factorized form. Once you have done that, you are then going to take your coordinates. So they'll give you the two x-intercepts and a coordinate. You're going to take the x and the y value from your coordinate and substitute it into the factorized form of the equation. There you will notice that you only have one unknown value, which is a. You're going to simplify and find the value of a. Once you have a, you are then going to substitute a back into the factorized form, and then you will simplify. Once you have simplified, you will write it in standard form, and you will see that you there have a value for a and a value for q. So you're going to be switching between the factorized form of the equation, and at the end you're going to finish off with a standard form. The first example I'm going to do with you is an example of type 1, and you can see from the diagram that they've given you the y-intercept, which is 2, and they've given you another coordinate, which is -1 and 6. So I'm going to do an example with you, and this will be an example of type 1. Right, grade 10s, we are going. And secondly, we are going to do an example of type 2. So you will notice on the diagram that you have got your x-intercept. So the graph intersects the x-axis at -3 and at +3. So those are your two x-intercepts. And you have an additional coordinate, which is -2 and -5. So we're going to do an example of type 2. Okay, the second type is where the x-intercepts are given. This is a little bit more complicated, but as long as you learn your steps, you will be fine. So the graph has told us that the x-intercepts are -3 and +3, and they've also told you that there is another point which is -2 and -5. Now, for the second type, we need to use the factorized form of our standard equation of a parabola. And all we're going to do is we're going to start off by substituting in for x1 and x2. And we're going to use our x-intercepts as x1 and x2. So if you want to, you can label it. I'm going to make that x1 and make that x2. It doesn't matter the order because you are multiplying. So that's my first step, is I'm going to replace the x1 and the x2 with my x-intercept. So I'm going to say y is equal to a, x, the first one, minus, but it's -3, so I put it in a bracket because of the signs, and the second one, x minus x2, which is 3. From there, I'm just going to quickly sort out those signs. So I've got x minus -3, so I know it's going to become x plus 3. And there I've got x minus 3. Okay, when I'm at that point, I now have another coordinate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace my x value and my y value with these over here. So we know the first one is x, the second is y. Instead of y, I'm going to put a -5 is equal to a. Instead of x, I'm going to put a -2, so -2 plus 3. And instead of x, I'm going to again put a -2 minus 3. And the point of this is to find the value of a, to find the size of a. So I've got -5 is equal to a. And then I'm just going to simplify these brackets. I've got -2 plus 3, which gives me 1. And I've got -2 minus 3, which gives me -5. So then I've got -5 is equal to 1 times -5 is -5. And -5 times a gives me -5a. And from there, I want a on its own. So I'm going to divide both sides by -5. Those cancel out. And I now have a all on its own is equal to -1. Okay, but I'm not finished yet because I still need to put it in standard form and find my q value. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to this point here. And I'm going to substitute my a value in there. So I'm going to say y is equal to, instead of a, I'm going to put a -1, x plus 3, x minus 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these two brackets by foiling. So I'm going to say y is equal to -1. I'm going to leave it in a bracket for now. So it's going to be x times x is x squared. X times -3 is -3x. 3 times +3 times -3 is -9. I'm going to simplify that quickly. So y is equal to -1. I'm going to sort out that -1 last. I'm going to say x squared, -3x plus 3x. You see they cancel each other out. And I've got... All right, grade 10s, I hope that helped you and that you understand how to do the two different types. We're going to move on to the homework now. So in your textbook, page 150, exercise 11, you will see there are 6 questions. I've only given you B, D, E, and F. You would see that I've actually done A and C with you as examples. Please, it's utterly important to identify which type you're working with. So what I mean is you would either identify, is the y-intercept given or are the two x-intercepts given, because that will determine how you are going to find the equation of the straight line. Guys, please try those 4 for me on your own. If you get stuck, please ask your teacher for help. And tomorrow you have got the day off. So Wednesday you've got the day off. And then on Thursday we will be starting with hyperbolas.